getting time to start painting some stuff, or at least getting things laid out on what's got to get painted. I've been looking on some photos from ILM, but most of it I can do a pretty much the whitish gray. I'm doing like an off-white. I made it up myself. Put it in a jar here. And then I'll use just the basic red. Like I showed before, our inside's all done. That looks good. Still debating if I'm going to do something there, but I can always worry about that later. What we'll do is we'll mask these from the inside. That way our windowsills will have the hull color. It's going to be mostly red until out here. It looks like right where this seam line is where it goes white. So that'll kind of help block that. But then most of it, like I said, they were pretty smart, where parts, where they put their seams, parts block. So like that blocks that, and then these go over top and block that. So I'm starting to clean these up so I can get these down. These two that are up here I'm going to leave out because I think they're in the white zone. I have to look at the ILM one. I know for sure for the photo from Gambodies, they show it white. Looking at it. Yeah, I mean, it's white and then dirty. That's what I'm going to do with it. But right now we got to get basic wing cut the white down, because I want a little white under the red anyway, so we can scratch it and show some of the white through. But I'm going to start cleaning up and getting these areas down, because these I'm going to stripe and mask right over top. It's going to be fun getting down in there. Probably have to do a little brush touch up, but because tape is not going to be happy trying to get down on those details. And even if I took it out, it's still not going to be happy no matter what you do. So I might as well get them down so I can at least get the... But all I'm doing is peeling as best as I can. And then this is a great tool. Get rid of the brim. See if they fit. And they're all the same. Just repeat a little bit. Don't break there in that notch. Like I said, their tolerances are very tight. Oh, see, there's still an edge here. But we can do that, and then on this side, we can do those. But I'm going to leave those. These ain't got, the landing hatch covers aren't going to matter because they're going to be completely in the red zone. Because the white will be back here, just behind that, so I don't have to worry about getting those and putting them in. And at this point, I ain't worried about the super glue making any that white haze that it tends to do. Get my old stir toothpick. All right. That one's down. I shouldn't press like that since this is a slight dome. There we go. There we go. And eventually I'm going to glue this part down. Like I said, this one's going to keep coming off so I can access the battery. Like I said, they left these here, but like, how are you going to get, unless you have a coin battery, you're never going to be able to replace a battery, or you get a shorty that can fit in this way. So, but I can fit batteries this way. I can slide them in there, leave something so I can pull it out. If I can even push a battery up here and have a switch right here, so I can leave one of those panels to come off. But we'll figure that out. But eventually I can glue this down, but I think it's going to be easier to paint. This is like the only piece I'm going to have to do the red part. Kind of does a stripe this way. Just for it. And this is all like a gunmetal. I'm going to have it in different silvers because I noticed on the ILM, this part's kind of different. That goes up. Let me get the whole piece. This part here is a little different. That goes up and around. It's a little lighter. Not quite silver, but it's a little lighter. And then this is darker. And then the engine bells are a shade darker than that. So I'm wondering if he just kept darkening each. I'm not sure. This is going to be a real easy because really it's just the top canopy's white. And then the bottom half of this front, this here, is white. So all this is red. Well, and I guess, no, this would be red too, because this would kind of pull in with the rest of all this. And this will be our turning mechanism. I'm hoping with all this stretchy plastic here that we have it all. I think we're good, yeah, because I see a solid base. And then it looks like these little notches will give it a, because the wings attach onto here. And that'll allow you to, but you got this whole mechanism here going on. I think this goes into that, which then this goes into that, and then it has the little springy things that click in these little notches. That's pretty neat. I know the guy that built the mechanism for the real ship had some fun because he also had to make a metal band so power went through it. So as the wings spun, they always still had, there wasn't wires, they were just running off a contact. But I'm going to keep cleaning. I'm going to glue these pieces on, and I'm just going to start hitting some things white. I don't think the landing gear to sit on the bottom pieces is going to have a, I can just hit them white, click them on, and then mask them to go with the red stripe on the front half. All right, messing around with the wings, just getting everything a little ready, getting these landing gear to fit. But it's going to be a tight fit. They're going to be nice. So that'll be like that. It's landed. A tight fit. But we have a couple pieces. They did another smart thing. They hid, like, they didn't put this detail down so it hides that seam. And then you only really have the seam kind of here. But where it crossed over, you know, like that, they kind of hid it. And then here, they hid it as well. So this will go here and hide it. And then one of these will go here and hide that part of the seam. So you only got this little bit here. Too bad they couldn't have done panels and like an insert for this panel. This little work. I guess that's engine, you know, mechanic parts down there, a little pocket. Kind of like the Falcon has on the mandibles in other areas. They could, it would be neat if they made that insert in. And for the most part, it's not. In a way, you can tell which landing ramp goes because of how the detail goes. My main problem is side to side, we're fitting pretty good. And it's popping down there. It's just you need like a little, to pop these open, you need a little tool. There you go. I don't want to keep digging that up. So easier, but we want them tight so that they don't just fall down, because I don't think the hydraulics for it really are just this. But I want it to open easier than this, because otherwise we're going to keep scratching paint once she's painted. So we'll clean up this edge a little bit and hopefully only have the front. But I'm trying to make it so a little less, a little smoother back here. So I've just been, because they printed like that. There we go. I love this silly thing. Okay. Yeah, so I'm not sure what goes where. I think it's the small one would go in here. This one's got to poke into this hole down there. And then I got to find, like I said, I got to find the one on this side that I covered with epoxy. That one's there. It should be right. I just push until I feel it pop. All right, but I'm getting off track here. I was wondering how these were hinging, but they do have little nubs. So I'm going to want to do more work and before we even paint that on those. But we still can. We can get this one down. We also got to make sure all this is at least clean and level. Probably the problem. Even though we don't have to worry about filling the seam, we got to make sure where that wants to go in. Not moving our piece out of shape. There we go. We're going to have to give her a good clamp. Might even have to give her a little sanding. Especially here, because there's a little bit of a gap, and I think that's moving the part tight there. I gotta order some more of these little files. These are getting worn. Like I said, I had these forever. They got used a lot on the. Yeah, we're gonna. How's it on this side? Same sitio. It's that little end being a little off. But where's this piece? We can get this one down. What I can do is clean this up. And this little point. Beautiful. Now she's popped in. So we're going to want to get rid of this. I think it'd be easier just to go in here and do a slicer. Spread. There we go. Now it gives us that detail. So we'll just click super glue that. But I'm going to keep doing this. This is just getting this little detail parts on, and then I'll probably run some tulip in the other areas, and then sand and stuff like that. Okay, got a primer coat on these parts here, which came out great. Now you can see so much of that great detail. The detail in the front is awesome. Some things on some kits are a little bit take a little bit of extra time and effort. Here's the main hull of the ship. Like I said, we got those pieces glued down. They're just going to probably be easier to have down for the stripe. Now these I'm going to have in the white, and then they get really dirty. But I figured instead of putting them in there and trying to mask that, I'll just put them in later. But it's looking good, and I blocked the windows from the inside. So we're getting ready to put the white on. These pieces came out good. I didn't go crazy down here because that's just gonna. This actually gets all metallics, real dark silvers. Yeah, I like to take this one brush that's a real coarse, and you get those little stringies from filament sometimes, especially when it's humid out, and it was when I printed this. And you can't see it when they're black, thin, little, really thin, like a hair. Black on black. It's kind of hard to see them, but primer will definitely let you see them. But usually that you can knock them away. Probably should have done that before I painted too. And a stubborn one you can just hit with a X-Acto knife. But that definitely gets them out of like the little recesses and stuff. Like I went up through these trenches and knocked a lot out. But yeah, we're going to get ready. I don't know what part I want to start next. I think I'm going to hold off on the wings because that's where all the main patterns are. Like I said, the main hull, right where this window shoots down, that's I'm going to follow this panel line. And that's where it kind of shows. So we'll follow that panel line where these two top, this lid came into, you had to print it in two pieces. So we can follow that panel line, that line for the white in the back and the red all up front. And the cockpit's really easy. It's pretty much the top. This is white. This is red. And then you just got to hit this nose piece white. So it looks like the white goes down and around. So that's no real masking there. I'll probably just hand paint that. And we'll hold off putting this in here because this all gets metallic. And here's a little gun turret. They can start. This is all white. And then it sits in this, which will be metallic. But I think what happens here is the red comes across like this. And then the rest of this is all white, so that's fairly simple. So this whole back half I can paint white. And same thing with this. There's a... Yeah, I think it goes this way. The red. I have to make sure. It's always weird when you're just holding them like this, and once it's down on the ship, you can think. But I think it goes like that. It might go like that. I'm not sure. But I just wanted to say, here's the wings. There's our landing gear. There was some fuzzies there, but it was a little too late to get them. But I'll just give a light sanding there. And we still got plenty of more paint to go on here. But they came out okay. I like it. And this gray will look good when we scratch through as well, through the red. You'll see some of this, and then we can get down to the black like they did in the actual filming miniature. All right. We got all the light gray, off-white all painted and I sealed it. And then I did last night, I did a little red here. Get these out of the way here. Sometimes it's easier just to stand them up. So I did a mask. I just did this back half in this white. Of course, we primered everything, but then I just did a mask in this white, this light gray, very light gray, almost off white, and then masked that off with and did the red. Didn't really have to worry about doing this because it'll have a piece like this covering all of it. I'm just hoping I have enough of this red here, but it covers a little better than this will. Like, it took me a while to paint this white because of it being a homemade color I mixed with white and black and a little bit of weird grays. But this red covered really nice, but I knew I was going to have some blow-throughs because this ship is very detailed in areas, and especially going over these parts. Excuse me, but not too bad for going over those parts. And I knew I'd have a little blast in on the back window areas here because there's no way to get, try to get tape in there unless I just did a little tape on its own and then did tape over top. But that's all right. We can clean that up because I sealed this. So what you can do a lot of times with these water-based acrylics, and sometimes the solvent ones too, is you can just go in and scratch anything off that's heavy. And you just take a wet Q-tip, because I know this works. I'm not sure about these water-based, if it works on those. Taking a Q-tip and dipping it in some water and with soap. See if I can find like a little overspray spot. I think there's some hit back here. Let's see if it wipes it off there. Yeah, not as good as the craft acrylics, but it is taking it off. It's a little more rubbing. Yeah, a little more rubbing than you'd have to do if it was just these. Especially since I didn't seal this yet, but I did seal this. And this here has a little bit of a sheen to it. So I'm going to have to go through here. The cockpit was easy because bottom half's red. The top here is the light gray. So I should be able to go in there, and then sometimes you just give them a little scratch just to break them open and just clean them up. Yeah, it's working. And then we can always touch up a little bit with a brush. So a lot of washes and scratches will hide any crimes, but it looks good. I'm happy. And so does this. So now we can actually get in here and paint the interior and paint the upper canopy, because I'll do that probably the floor color. Well, maybe not. Probably carry the wall color right up around that real light gray. And then we'll paint up these controls that are on these bars here. And then the big deal is going to be doing these. Which, like the one girl, I think it's M&M's 3D printing. She did one of these. It came out great. Yeah, it's going to be the same thing. Masking that design on here. There's so much detail that you're going to have blow through. So, you can soften the edges with a Scotch-Brite. And we'll do the same thing as clean up like that as best we can. But with all this raised paneling, it's going to be hard. And it doesn't follow paneling. Like the Falcon kind of had panels that it followed. Like you would have a panel a different shade. These are not following any panel. And then except for this here, this gets a silver. Like an aluminum, I think. And I think that's what we're going to do in this trench. Which I got these wonderful Vallejo, like That's a natural steel. Or I got the gunmetal, and I think this is oily steel. We'll see which one of those works good. But I'm going to go off and continue painting red parts. Printed the landing gear because I need to get some of them painted. These are the hatch covers. That'll go here. So I got to get them cleaned up, primered, and then hit with a red. These are easy. They're going to be straight up all red because they're completely in the red area. Then we got these. I got both of those that I got to get painted. These are these are where these landing gear, these short landing gear would go. When this sits, it'll be like that. So it'll actually have that like that, and these longer legs go into that. But I'm not always going to have the landing gear down, but I do want them when I do want to set it down. If I take it to a show and I want to show the interior, we'll set it down. But this comes with a nice stand that you can that hooks onto the wing here, and you can have it standing upright. Another reason why I wanted this to be battery powered, so I can move it and we can spin the wings. So I got these panels, both of those panels printed. I was just doing a test fit and make these a little less snug, and if it have to be maybe a magnet there. But these are still got to get cleaned up, but they have the hatches too. I know this one's going to stay white. This one here, I'm trying to think of how that color comes. Once I figure out, maybe part of it might get caught with some of the red. I'm not sure. And then here's the landing gear on the that attaches to the hull. That came out nice. So I got to clean them up, get them painted, and then we'll do the, the hydraulics in the silver and blah blah blah. Tracks in the gunmetal. It looks like it has tracks, but they're probably just pads. But I'm going to continue doing some masking. All right, all taped up. I'm going to go to the spray booth and just spray this area here. That was fun to try to match them because you don't have similar detail. This one's different than the other, so I had to use my little angle thing to get me close. Close enough. It's like I said, it's hard. Plus, trying to get this to go halfway across this is hard, and get the same amount of space here, and yeah, so it's fun. So, but we're probably gonna have a lot of blow throughs, especially on this top one. We'll probably have to touch up half of that where it wants to come through. Anywhere else, like here, we got to make sure everything's down tight, and then hit it lightly from this way. But off to paint. Well, now I got these on. I went and cleaned up all those edges, so they came out nice. And let's unwrap these and see how they came out. We're probably gonna have to clean up a lot in there, I'm sure. I mean, I tried to spray this way, but you got to try to get it down into the cracks too. So we're gonna have some overspray, and anything down here ain't gonna matter because not too bad. Not too bad. A couple blow throughs on this side right there, but that should just basically scrape off, and it'll scrape off easier It's a little bit soft yet. And we can have some of the chipping into the red, like some of the white could show, the light gray could show and show through, on the red, so it looks like chipping anyway. So that's not bad at all. And then that'll go there, and we're looking good. It's starting to look like a Ahsoka ship, especially once we get all that gunmetal. Not complaining about that at all. Took the tape out of here. I'll probably have to put it there again to clear. But I don't want too much buildup. Otherwise, I'll build a brim of paint. And that way I can clean them a little bit too. But I did get that blowout in those seams in the corner window area. Nice. It's starting to look like a ship. And I'm liking how you're still going to be able to see those pipes there. This slid all the way forward. This one here, you got to make sure this little wall, once it gets glued, it'll be fine. But it just fits in that. Now I see why they have that notch there. But we should have a little less blow through, I'm hoping, because it didn't have these hatches. Yeah, there's a nice little bit there, but that's the compound curve there. I didn't get that sunk down enough there, but still, that's an easy cleanup. There we go. Up here, I ain't gonna worry about too much because the landing gear will be, the hatches will cover all that, and pull that nice edge back in. She's gonna be nice too. All right, we're getting there. All right. Well, I'm gonna call it a night, and then we'll go. I'll go through and then clean these up a little better, and then we're gonna. I think I want to start. Well, let's finish up all this red. And while I'm letting that red cure, I can then come back and start doing all this mechanics parts down here. And we do have to get those painted. Well, I went and masked off the wing. I should have showed you what I was doing, or at least a preview of before I painted, but I got too excited and kept going. But we'll show the other side. But as long as I didn't get any red down here, past here. This was kind of easy, so I kind of did this spot, but and I have some overspray down here, but that's not going to matter because it'll be the red. We'll go from here to here, and then this all gets hit with. I think I'm going to use some type of metallic silver, dull silver. I think the same thing I'm going to use for this piece that goes up here. It gets striped here. We'll use not such a dark gunmetal, more of a in between, not silver, but let's see. Hopefully this is dry enough. Let's see if we can peeling off there pretty good. So it's leaving it fine. We'll probably have tons of blow throughs because there's a bunch of stuff like that. We can take this off because it's a big piece. There we go. How are you on there? Doesn't want it to flow through there. A lot of this we can touch up, especially in this white zone. But like I said, most of it's going to get that gray in there, that metallic. But I was going off of this here for where the white could be. I could even hit that with like a metallic black, gunmetal there. I feel like, I don't know. To where it's like I thought we'd have some, especially here. There's a lot of deep, but we've been able to touch them up really easy or scrape. I can just take this and probably, especially while it's soft. Yep, nice. Here's a big part. Yeah, I need some. We got some. Yeah, we got some blowouts. Exactly 0.18. When you want to make a hole really exact, you use one of these things called a reamer. But these long, straight chisel blades. But not bad. Not meant for cutting. A lot of it's probably the craft acrylic because I used a craft acrylic red to get some coverage down, and then I went with the red that I used, which is a little more solvent based. It says water based, but it has, it's a little more. Takes a little more for the water to actually soften it, and we'll crisp all these lines up. Now that should be a very close hole. So it's able, I can just pretty much rub over the line and clean it up. Like I said, I sealed this so it allows me to scrape and clean and not reactivate that paint. And you even look at the one from ILM and it's not perfect. Yeah. I find this bit of a narrative because I have to cut this pen. A lot of times you notice that some of the ILM models are not as perfect because they're just looking for camera. Or we're kind of painting and building for people to be standing at it and looking at it. It's even like Wonderfest 2 years ago when I met Lauren Peterson and all those guys from ILM. They're like, yeah, we walk around and look at you guys' models, and we're like, they're so nice because you guys get to spend the time to really do them all the way around and stuff. Or we're kind of just what works for the camera or what the camera sees, and then they kind of have to abandon it with deadlines and stuff like that. But it worked good because I'm a little low on red, so I did the craft acrylic red, and then I did the other red. They're almost exact. I think it's more this has almost a satin look, so that kind of gives you the difference in the color because I did tap the craft acrylic on top of an area I sprayed, and it really looks more of like a sheen thing than a color thing. Let's take this off because I need this on top. Oh, I expected to be more there. Let's see how this. There's probably some blowouts out of here. Oh yeah. Again, there's a lot of Ridiculous detail here. I can't even follow this line anymore. Yeah, that area is going to need some serious touch-up, which I kind of figured. Because I couldn't get the tape down tight here without losing its shape. I think that's good enough to get the idea. And we'll get it cleaned up a lot more. See what it's looking like with the ship. Yeah, now we're starting to look like a Ahsoka ship. And we got that on there. I'm liking it. Well, we'll start taping the other side off and trying to match what I did here. I got some certain, these here I know are going to be as wide as that. So that makes, that easy. I don't have to measure how wide they are. I'm just going to get the right point and then go, just lay the tape down. So that worked out pretty good. That this width of this tape worked out fine, which also means that these are probably, yeah. So each little notch is like the same width. And this wasn't too hard to find this point of here. I kind of went off this top one, did this, and then where that met this panel line, it went straight back to this tip of this panel here. And then I went one centimeter up for this part. So, not horrible. And all this follows this panel line where these whites stop. We got some chipping there we'll fix. Or actually, we'll probably just leave because it looks good. Yeah. Looks like chipped, good, nice, good chipped paint. Okay. I got the center part where the cockpit will attach to this cleaned up. We're going to have to do a little filing to get the wings to fit. This looks like this is probably a little thick here. But it's 3 parts. It's this centerpiece. And then it gets these guys. Or these here that go on like that. And then these are the slots to allow the wire as it spins. The wire won't get snagged as it comes through the holes here. If it can come out these ways to go out the wings, because then there's a slot right there. I don't know if I can get. There you can see it right there. That comes out here. And that way the wire can go up through and into those holes there. Oh, there's 2 holes. One probably comes down. I don't know where the other one goes. One's for the light here. We'll have to stick wire, but where does the other tunnel go? That's the question. Yeah, not sure what the second tunnel is for. Got to go back here somewhere. I don't know if there's a hole for a light in this for the when the landing ramp goes down. You can have a light there or something. Not sure. But yeah, let's see if we can remember how this goes together. Like this. So what I got to do is glue these pieces to this. And I think this side here goes down in this way. And we'll drop it like that. You just got to make sure your wires, those tunnels, always stay free open. Yep. When it does its full turn. What we can do, we might as well just go ahead and glue them down. I'll go like that. Yeah, and then as that turns, we'll still have, yep. We can glue all this down. It's gonna be easier to glue this like this. Is that right? Yep. That goes like that. Now we gotta get this. It only gives you one way to for these to go on. Well, either way, because they gave you a good notch. And then you can eventually, I'm not sure which way this goes with this collar in the back or towards the front. But eventually, once those, see, that's why you got to glue these on. So they'll hold the centerpiece in there. I'll put some clamps on that. There we go. And we'll keep that clamped because that'll hold that whole thing together. Here's the masking of the wings, what it looks like. Everything in that's taped will stay white. Everything else, all this is going to be red. And the nice thing is the width of a piece of tape is all these stripes have to be. So that worked out really good for this, especially in this scale. So this second one really taped up way easier. And then we'll have to do the other sides. So I'm going to get ready to paint that here soon. And we're moving on this piece. First I'll show I got these pieces in. I painted them this hull color and then I hit them with the gunmetal from Folk Arts. Watered it down so it kind of still show a little bit of the light gray. So it wasn't overly dark. Did that on both of them. I should get these landing gear cleaned up, or landing hatches cleaned up and hit them red too. What else gets red? Well, the long landing gear ones I can worry about later. And then I started working on these. Cleaned up any spots on these hatches. And then I went with the dark gunmetal here and went with this zinc in here. But I still think this is a little on the light side, a little silvery, but it's the darkest silver I have besides the gunmetal. Most of these colors are so close. From this Vallejo gunmetal, and then I have a natural steel and an oily steel. They're so close. I mean, here's the three of them. I think this is the gunmetal, natural steel, and oily steel. So I found this zinc to use for these lighter areas, but I'm going to really heavily wash, so I'll hit all this with a heavy wash to kind of tone this silver area down. But yeah, those are two different silvers. But the main body is mostly dark, so I think if I do a heavy black wash in there, that'll help. And then the back half, I got the turret area all painted up. So I did that gunmetal, continued that stripe here as darker, and then this is lighter. And then these little hatch things here, I noticed were a little on the darker side, or whatever these things are. So I hit that with the darker gunmetal. and the top half and all up in there with the gunmetal, and then came back with continue this around. So it brings out those two different pieces. So we're ready. We could that's gonna be pretty much ready for the turret ball, but we got to build the turret ball. But yeah, I like that. And it's looking good sitting down on here. So I could actually probably get close to gluing this down here. What else? Well, what do I got to do here? I got to find a way to make sure I can fix a light so it shines back here to light up the gun turret ball. They did give you some detail in there. It'll look like a hallway, and I guess little grids up top. Not going to worry about that. You probably won't be able to see them. But I got to think of a way to have a light sit here. But then we got to remember there's wires going to come up here for the battery. So probably up top I'll just glue on a... oh yeah, I can use the angle and glue on a little 5mm, maybe a 3. Right there, kind of pointing down at an angle. Hopefully that'll glow the windows there. And still try to block how much room I got. Quite a bit. And still try to block the light from blasting all the way up through. Otherwise, I'm afraid the seams here will have a glow. And this we don't have to do anything to, because this one's not. This one's going to be magnet. So I do have to drill some holes for the magnets and do the same on this lid without going through. Or I can maybe etch a piece of metal and put that down there. It'd be nice to have magnets, because then the two magnets are really... But if I can get a piece of metal and etch it in there and sink it flush, I think that would probably be the best thing to do. Find some type of magnetic metal and do that. I think it would be best, because I think this ceiling is about as thick as my magnets are. And then we do need to drill one in here for the... I do want to have a magnet to help pull those together. That one's got to get pressed down, but we still have a little tight ski fit there. But we can probably glue this piece down soon. Because even once it's glued down, I can pop this off and get wires to fish out through here. And in that way. So we need a positive and negative to come down and go power up everything else. But we'll have the jumper off to a light here, and that's it. So yeah, we're getting ready to glue that, but that's looking good. We just got to paint all this here. And I'm going to paint these because they're supposed to be like windows, I guess, even though you don't really see them on the inside as windows. Yeah, if I take this off. Yeah, it doesn't really have it marked as windows on the inside. But regardless, I know they're black on the ILM kit. So I'll just hit them with black and make them glossy. Just like they did. Yeah, and then we can pop those wires down through. But I don't think this plastic is thick enough for my batteries. Maybe. It might be. It's on this high rise. I'll have to see. It'll be close. Probably if I... yeah, it'll be close. Alright. Yeah, we're ready to do all that, but at least we got the hull finally going, and then we got to do some gunmetal up here. And then these will hit, I think, probably with some gold rub and buff. Or dry brush some gold on there. because I noticed that in the model kit. But I'm going to continue and get some red down on this top part of this other wing. All right. I'm going to see if it's safe enough to take some of this tape off. Get a reveal here. Get this. Let's start here. Probably have some blow throughs and that we have to fix, just like any other. Yep, not too bad though. These are a little more finer. There's a couple thick ones there, and here we'll have to clean up a little bit, but not too bad so far. We haven't gotten to the end yet. Especially since this sat overnight, so yeah, I got some fixing to do. For the first time, a little bit of red's got to go there. Yeah, most of them are just little mist throughs, which is much easier to get rid of than the big blowouts. Let's see if we fared as well on the other part right here. Not too bad right there, and that's a hard spot right there. A little more up this way, but this is where there's a lot more detail. We should probably do this. It's a little, yeah, it's a little wet right there. Sweet. That's good for now. We let her fully cure because I still see feel a little bit of tackiness. But no, not bad. And then what I did this piece here, and I just taped these so we don't get paint buildup because it's a nice tight ski fit for the wings, which is good because then they won't rattle a lot. But I did do some test fits to get them in there. Mainly I had to clean a lot of it in this tunnel here where it built a support. But sweet. Make sure the edges of that are pressed down so it looks more like a chip. Yeah, I like that. I'll leave it there. And that's why I always want to do the main hull color and then do the red over top so when we scratch we can get into this color, but we can scratch even deeper and we can get down the black, which is common for a lot of ILM stuff. I don't know, a lot of their stuff was built with black styrene and stuff. Or they used a black primer, but I know I've seen like some of the ships you can see that they're a black plastic. I think they showed a Falcon when they finally start laying sheets over top that they're black. The Y-Wing, the same thing. Why the chip outs are black, it's because the plastic underneath. So they used to just take their razor blades and just scratch a little bit and then scratch deeper, and you got right. You didn't even have to really paint any of it. All right. Well, I'm gonna let these pieces dry, but let's see what this. It's a little shiny there, but that's probably because it's still a little wet. I do want to hit some more red more on the inside here to hide stuff. But yeah, these just slide in like that, and then we're able to rotate the wing. And then this will just go on there like that. And then the wings slide right on there. Shall we dare to try? We might not try to force them too much because we might not be able to get them back off, and we need to pop some wires in these yet. Let's do this. Let's get them on this piece first. Even if it's just that much. There we go. You don't have to stick it on all the way. Yeah, and now we'll be able to actually put the... There we go. Oh, she's not going to want to stay. She's not as tight of a fit. Oh, and I painted this front piece to the red bottom. Because that's how that is. I don't know if I thicken it up a little pieces of tape. So we'll just go right to there. See if that was the problem. It might be just too much overall. Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. Well, we're going to let this cure more before we start touching that up. That's it for tonight. But some definite progress. And that's looking good. More and more keeps looking like the ship.